right, share. Okay. And all right. There's that guy. All right. So, awesome. Hey, Emily. Oh, I guess I should plug you all in too. Maybe you would like to see the screen as well. Yep. Look at you go. You're doing great. All right. That guy can go. This guy can go. Let's try and limit the number of things I've got running to increase the odds that things don't have a fit. All right. How is this? Let me get into actually what we're going to be working in. Yes, how's this for? Oh, 1 minute. Sorry. Maybe I should turn on the TVs. Might be a little bit helpful. Got myself some sneaky cheat sheets just in case I get lost. All right.
Hey, Kelsey. Hey, Cal. Hey, Kelsey.
All right, how's that for size people in the room? Okay. Good? Okay. Let's change this to Babel. Nope, definitely not C. Try again. All right, there we go. And how's this one? Okay. I'm just going to do a little bit bigger because you know what this one is. And all right, so Paul, what class are you coming from?
The 6-month part-time.
Are you guys done or?
We are done.
You're done. Okay. This front row is 6-month part-time, but they are almost to the end of the first week of React. So.
Yeah, we spent probably the last 3-4 weeks.
Yeah. All right. So my ladies in the front row and remotely have not gotten to state yet, which is very important for this application. So we're going to do a quick overview of what state is, why we want it, what it does, all that nice stuff. And we have Abby in the back who will be helping as issues arise because I can't be everywhere. But Abby, if I miss something, don't hesitate to jump in. So who is here? Who was on what team? How many of you guys had a situation in your project too where you updated some piece of information and then you had to do like a location reload? Yeah. So state helps you not have to do that because it holds all that data and it changes the view of the page based on what is in state. So in this case, let's see, which one is this? All right, so this is the finished what we're gonna build. Okay. So what is going to be changing on this page?
The target volunteers.
Yep, wins, losses. Also these values here, but all of this is changing without me having to do a reload. And since we don't use jQuery with React, we're also not having that like adding things together like we did back when we built Crystal Collector originally. So all of this is changing based on what's in state. So this little bar is going to be the death of me.
Same.
So that's what state is. That's what it does for the purposes of today and what we're doing, and just giving you like a preview of what you're going to see tomorrow. That's, I think, hitting the big things. But if you have something that you're like, but what about this? Don't hesitate to, jump in there and ask me. So let's look back at Old Crystal Collector, this archaic thing we haven't seen in a very long time. So we have our different pieces here, and we know each of our crystals here were a value from 1 to 12. Our target score was up to 120. And then we have our wins and our losses and your score. And wouldn't you know, if we look at this here in React, we've got a target score, your score, wins and losses, and then we have these crystals whose values change when you win or lose. So if we lose this one, you see that's updating, and this is changing. It's no longer 5, now it's 9. So that is all this is. If you look at what you've forked and cloned, you see that we have in our components, we've got 5 different components here. If you look in them, they're empty with the exception of header and wrapper. Wrapper came from the SpongeBob activity, and it's just to deal with the spacing of those. So, and then header, yes, you can see that this looks very much like these 2 lines here. So if we know that header is a component and it's these 2 lines, what other components, and we know that wrapper is this gray here, what other components do you think we have here? Wins, yep, so scores is going to be our wins and losses. Or no, scores is going to be our target score and your score. Wins and losses I called historic data. You might also be getting a little preview of what they are based on what's in your app.js. We have our crystal picks, which are these guys here. And then we've got, if we look at what's commented out here, we also have this crystals.json. And this guy here, this will look very much like what you did with Crystal Collector, where you had just the image, we've got an ID, and we have a name. Okay?
So that's like your friend finder.
Yep.
With the pictures instead of just saving it to your images folder.
Yep. So, what?
Instead of doing those.
I didn't have to save those images on my computer, which was nice because size.
Okay.
And I think if you were working at a company, right, you would definitely want to save those things because you want them to be yours and they're forever, and not, like if this company P&G Arts changed this path, things would break.
That was my question.
Right. Since this is a dink around project that I built, it's just, that's the way I went. And then I didn't have to do the local mapping to it. So pathing, not mapping, pathing to it. So in this case, I would say preference.
Okay.
No problem. So if we have, this is what you all have. You can also see that you've got this white border here that we don't see with other Create React apps. That's because I've put a little bit of styling into your app.css already. So that's why this looks just a hair different than what you would see with an out-of-the-box Create React app. All right, are you guys ready to get building? So the first thing that we're going to think about is, what do we want to keep in state? So the first one, so if we come to our app, it extends our component. The first thing we're going to do is state equals, and then this state is an object. Yep, app.js. So state is an object that has key value pairs. The very first thing, I'm going to uncomment this crystals on line 5, and we're going to put that in as our first argument because this is something that we need access to. And because of ES6, I can write just crystals. That would be the same as writing crystals : crystals. But we have that nice ES6 shortcut where if it's the key and value are the same name, you can just write it once. Okay. So what other things do you think we're going to need to keep track of here? Think back to what you know, crystal collector. What things did we need to keep track of there? Yeah, our scores. So our target, and for now we're going to set our target to 0, and our score, which I'm just going to call score, and I'm also going to set that to 0 for right now. What other things?
Your minimum loss tallies.
So we've got wins, and don't forget your commas, losses. All right, so we've got crystals, we've got scores, we've got wins and losses. We're missing one thing. What is it? Yeah, the crystal values. So we'll just call those values. And for right this minute, we're just going to label this as null, but we'll talk about what will make that when we get to that point just a little bit later. Okay? So, great. We see no change here. We see it reload. No change. Didn't break anything, so that's good. So let's start with probably the easiest parts of these. What do you think that one is going to be? Oh, you think that's going to be the easiest one? So which ones, what ones did I give you and we don't need to write anything for? The header. The header. So let's start with the header. Really, loading the pictures in is not that hard. It's just the most involved one. None of this is like excessively difficult. You all are perfectly capable of getting this done, even though we haven't gotten there in class yet. I have full faith in all of you, but especially since you did the SpongeBob one, there's going to be a lot of overlap here. But we're going to start with the one that I gave you. Also, if you're at home and you have any questions, unmute yourself, jump in, maybe jump into the Slack channel, because I don't know if the audio is on in this room. So.
Can you hear me, Lindsay?
All right. So we gave you header, and by we, I mean I gave you header. So we have here our import React from React. We have our function of just header and a return that is just returning the text that we gave you, and then this really important export default header. So down here, we're bringing it in, and it's yelling at me because I never use it. So what we're going to do is we're going to gut out everything but the outer div. And then how do I put header in here? Not quite. Brackets and header, yeah. And then we need to close this one. So now, if we come back and we check out this guy, hey.
I guess I just answered my question because I just put in the lowercase h.
Yes.
And it never.
No.
It's
Capitalization
whatever
is.
you call it.
Yes. So capital H header here.
There it is.
Components are always capitalized. Every project that I've worked on, capitalize your components. So, all right. So let's work down the page and let's get a target score and your score in here. So how do we think we're going to do that? So we're going to go to scores. We're going to go to the component scores. What's the first thing that we're going to do here? Import React from React. Excellent. And then we just need to do a function. We're going to call this scores. And I always right away do my export default scores or I forget. So just do that straight off the jump and then you don't forget, which is great. All right, so scores is getting that data from somewhere else, right? Because we talked about how we're saving this information in state. So what is scores going to take in here? It's another P word.
Props.
Props. You were so close. Okay. And so this one is what we would consider kind of a dumb component. It doesn't have any state. It only cares about itself. So all that it's going to have in here is a return. And what do we want to return from here? Well, yes. So let's look back at what we're building. So what do you think we need to put in this return here to build this component? And so if I just write H3 and I do target score, and then what would I put in here? Yeah, props, target. Okay, so what do I need to do for your score? Whoop, try that again. Oh, I have something for you.
Ladies.
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Okay, so does anybody see a problem here? What happens if I come over here? And, well, okay. Does anyone see a problem first?
Why you need the is not colored? The fragment.
Fragment, right. Remember, JSX blocks that are next to each other need to be wrapped in one thing. So either a div or a fragment here. I'm going to make this a div of target score value. I don't know that I have a class on this one or if I have any styling, but in my notes here, I did give it a class name. So I'm going to make this a div with a class name instead of a fragment. Sorry, ladies, I built this a year ago and I haven't looked in depth at it since then. So, all right. So now if I come over here, there's nothing. Why is there nothing?
You haven't imported scores.
Over in our app, we haven't imported it and we have not added it to this. So if I add scores here, What else do I need to give it? Sure.
Maybe it's a syntax question, but it's just header space backslash close.
Mm-hmm.
I have header header. What's the
That works too.
okay?
So when you have, so this is the same as having, so the difference is here, I cannot put anything inside of scores. I could put something inside of header when it's written like this, right? So if we look at our wrapper here, and we'll get to this in a second when we get to this part, but see how this has props.children? Remember from our activity in class where you have one outer thing and then we have some stuff tucked inside of it. Those are its children. It's the only prop that we can't rename is props.children. So if you had it how we just had this header over here this way, I could give this header some children in this syntax. So both are valid.
No wrong answer.
No wrong answer. Right, so we've written our scores and we see we have a whole lot of nothing here because we haven't given it any
Data.
well, we haven't given it any data. And over in our scores, we're looking for props.target and props.yscore. So let's go over to our app.js and how am I going to give it those things?
Well, we're already importing score.
We are already importing scores. So, yep, that's on the other side. So how, if we think back to activities in class, how did we give something props? Target equals, and then we had a set of curly brackets. So we're going to have target and we're going to have y-score because those are the two props that it's looking for on the other side, right? Now, we are wanting to get these values out of state. And this is how we do it. Paul, do you have any ideas? Not to put you on the spot, but you're the only one who's gotten to this part.
Say that again.
How do I get a value out of state?
This dot state target or this dot state score.
Exactly. So if we're trying to get into something, into something that's in state, we have to tell it first that it's in this state. Why am I using this keyword, right? So notice how this is a class and how we can't use class in, like, we have to use class name instead of just class in like the HTML portions in our returns. So if you think back to objects and classes when we learned those back in week like 12 maybe, we had to use this if we wanted to refer to something in the object. We had to say this dot something, this dot that. This is the same situation. We're saying, hey, in this class, find the state. In that state, find the target. All things you know, just bringing them together in a different way. Just bringing it together. All right, so now if we come over here, oh my God, ladies, we have zeros. So exciting. So target scores, and does everybody have zeros?
Yeah, on my first one.
Because we would score up the state, I think.
So make sure that y-score and target are the same prop names that you put over in scores. If you made these something different, your props would need to be something different. I'm coming.
All right. Can we? Oh, you
Yeah,
wanted to? Those are just,
Oh,
they're
no,
just-
yeah.
Always the damn.
I'm not sure why you would want to go. So talk to me more about that. Okay. I mean, if you can talk to me about it now. Okay. All right. So we have zeros. These zeros and target score also look like something else that we need to build. The wins and losses. So because I'm lazy, I'm going to select all of this from scores, copy it. We're going to go to historic data and drop that in. Change your scores to data. That's what I called it over in app.js. You can see on line 6, we're importing data from historical data. And then the bottom default.
Yep. And then we don't want to look at the target score anymore. We want to look at wins and losses. So let's make our props something that makes sense to that. Wins and losses. Sure.
How come you would export default data but not historic data?
Because I called it data on the other end. What you want to make sure, yes, but also what you want to make sure is that this function and this export are the same. That's the important piece there, and that it's the same over in app. So those 3 things need to be the same, not necessarily your file name. Yep. So what pieces do we have here, ladies and gentlemen? We have our wins, our losses. We're importing React from React. And remember, even though we don't see ourselves using that React keyword, when it's running through Babel, it is. So we still need it there. We have our return. We have all of our JSX wrapped in one overarching piece with a class name. So now that we've got that, let's go bring that in our app.js. How are we going to do this? In the return. Beautiful, Claudia. Yep, I guess that is what I wrote. Yeah. All right, so now if we look over here, why are we not refreshing? There we go. Beautiful. So we are 3/4 of the components through, so that's great. Yeah. Yep. If you want, and sometimes we'll see this in the next piece, we'll see it broken up into multiple lines. I find when there's only like 1 or 2, I leave it all in one line. If there are 3 or more, generally I'm running into the end of the word, like wrap, so I put it on multiple lines just for readability. Okay. Crystals now, yes. So if we look back at this guy, what's up? Did you uncomment it on line 6? You're welcome. Is everybody doing okay at home? Excellent. Let's check general real quick. Oh, thank you. You're rocking it. Okay, so we know that this inner piece here, or this gray bit, is the wrapper. So I'm gonna uncomment line 7, and we're just going to do this as wrapper, and we're gonna do this like Rachel talked about earlier, where we have wrapper, and then we close it as wrapper. Because we wanna put some stuff in it. We gotta put those children in their place inside of the wrapper. And if we look at wrapper, wrapper is expecting props.children. So it is expecting something to be inside of it. Okay. So here we've got this. Now let's take a step sideways and let's look at crystals, right? Because that's the data that we're really going to be working with in this case. So if you look at your crystals.json, what do we have?
A name, an ID, and picture. An array.
An array with objects of name, ID, and picture. Yes, SpongeBob's. So how do we deal with an array when we're in React?
So long ago.
It was so long, all of yesterday.
Or just in React. A lot of info, man.
So much older in 24 hours. Wow, we've got magical powers here.
It's a square bracket. Like, where I remember.
Okay, how do we usually deal? Okay, a filter is a method that you can use on one.
Map.
A map. Right, because we can't use a for loop in React.
Right.
We have to use those methods. So we want to map over it and do something to every one of those. So
Is
let's,
it just because React didn't implement the for loop?
yeah, you cannot use them in your render. You can't use a for loop. You've got to use those.
Any of the traditional JavaScript. You can use the ternary.
Yep, you can use ternaries and maps. Those are methods.
And else conditional.
Yeah, you wouldn't use an.
Use a ternary.
You'd use a ternary or a map instead. So we're going to make some notes first. How about that? So over here, we want to map over the crystals, which are saved in state. So how do we reference them? Yeah. So let's, and you did fine. And we all survived. You're doing great. So if we look at what we're finishing with here, let's build out the item that we're going to be making in that map, right? So we know we're going to map over that array. So we're going to have these 4, but what are those 4 going to look like? So let's go to Crystal Pictures real quick. And what's the first thing that we're going to do?
Import React.
Import React from React. And then the second thing we're going to do, function, Crystal Pics, and then we're going to export. Ooh, can I type? Questionable. Okay. So we know this one's just going to have a return. What's it going to take in?
Prop.
Yes. So we're going to put props in here. And we're going to return. And
inside of our return, we're going to have a div with the, let's change this to this one. We're going to have a div with a class name of card. This is one where I know that I did give you the CSS here. So class names are going to be important here. Okay. So what is inside of this card?
The information from the JSON.
Well, what is this? A picture.
Yeah.
So
Image.
an image, yes.
Oh, you mean
Yes.
What is that tag?
And this one, the class name is going to be card dash image dash top. Okay. So what does this image need to have? A source, yep. So the SRC is going to be equal to props.image. Sound good? What other things is it going to have? So React is going to yell at us if we don't give it an alt tag.
Yeah, it's yelling at me hard.
So we're going to make that props.name. Here, ladies, just as a point for accessibility, you don't need to say image of this thing or picture of this thing. Screen readers are going to tell the user that this is an image, and then it's just going to read off the alt tag. So you're being redundant. You just have to say what it is. So we've got an alt tag, so React won't yell at us. And let's actually break this onto multiple lines so that it's easy to see. So we've got a source, we've got our alt tag. What else does, think back to Crystal Collector. What do the pictures have? A value. Value. And then if we think to Crystal Collector, what is the other thing that we have tied to these images? A click event, yes. So over here, we're going to say, we'll put in an on click in a minute. Let's make sure that we can get things on the page. And then we will talk about the on click because there are some little special gotchas with them. So let's deal with one thing at a time. Yeah? So remember, we are going to need an on click. So back in our app, we can bring in Crystal pictures. And now let's go back to our note about mapping over this .state.crystals. Okay. So if I want to do a map inside of a return, what do I do first? So if I'm going to do a map or something inside of our return, there is something special that I have to put around it.
Doubles.
Singles, but yes, curlies. So, because we're saying, hey, I'm about to make a JSX expression. So heads up, I'm about to do some JavaScript in here, React. Don't just try and put this straight on the page. That's what we're saying. So we're going to, so we knew we're going over crystals, which is in state. So how am I going to write this map? State.crystals. And what am I wanting to do to it? Dot map. Perfect. Okay. So what comes next in a map? So we're going to write it in ES6 syntax, right? So first thing, we're going to call it what each individual item is. So I'm just going to call it crystal because that's what it is. It's just one of those. Then we're going to do a fat arrow. And we're going to have a set of parens. Okay. Now, inside of here, what do we want if we come back over here? What are each of these? It is a component. It is the, which component? Yep, so Crystal Picks. So this is the children that we are giving that wrapper. And here we're making one for each of the items in crystals. Okay, so we have our Crystal Picks here, and we're going to give it a class name. And that's going to be equal to image. Then we're going to give it all the props that we talked about on the Crystal Picks, the Crystal Pictures page. So let me split that off to the side here so that we can see what props we need, right? So we need an image for our SRC on line 7 here. So image, and that's going to be equal to crystal.picture. And that should be wrapped in curlies. So, because JSX. So, where is this dot picture coming from? The JSON, right? Because in the JSON we have the name, we have the ID, and we have the picture. Okay. So we need a name. What's that one going to be equal to? Crystal.name. We're going to give it an ID even though we didn't set it up to use it. Maybe you want to build this out in the future and you would want that ID. Well, let's just future-proof it, put it in now. If down the line we decide that we want to use it, we can. So we're going to put crystal.id. We're going to give it a value. We're going to hold off on value and score for 1 minute, and we will cover that in just a second, right? Because if I put value right now, what would it be? All the same, and it would be coming from state, and it would be null. So they would all be null. So let's hold off on value, and score is what we would call our click event. So we're going to hold off on that one too and just make sure we can get these on the page. Let's start there. What is one thing that React is going to yell at us about right now? Let's see, what is it? It's mad about something. What did I forget? All right. Where's the mad? Oh, I never closed this, so probably mad about that. So don't forget to close out your crystal picture if that was your problem. Okay, so if we inspect this, okay, we're gonna deal with that in a second. Ooh, it's yelling at me because it wants a unique key. So just in here, we're gonna put, I'm gonna help you in 1 second. We're just gonna throw a key in here, and we're also gonna make key equal to crystal.id because I know that they are unique. So that should stop the yelling. And there we go. Let's.
Why not just use key and not use ID?
You could do that. I put ID in because down the line, you might want access to that ID.
Right.
At this point, we're not using it, so it's not a big deal.
But like in databases, I mean, often the primary key is called ID.
Yes.
But in React, they always want you to have a key.
Yes. So if you're iterating over something and you're creating multiples, like in a map, it needs to have a unique key so that it knows it's targeting the right item.
And so when you click on something, is the key what gets returned?
Not
You know what I
necessarily.
mean?
Maybe not, but we'll see.
Okay.
So it's not, when you click on something, it's not returning the key, but React is using that key, as I understand it, to make sure that it is interacting with the correct thing and updating the correct thing. So if you have multiple keys with the same index, things may get out of sync.
So the key should be unique.
Keys need to be unique. You don't want to use them as like the location in an array, because if you pop something out of that array, it's going to mess up. It's not a consistent item. Whereas if we look at our, let's close down this crystal pick for a minute and open up the JSON. So if we see here, this ID is hard coded in there. It does happen to be the array position, but it is not tied to the array position. So, all right. Who's still having problems?
I'm just looking to see what mine is.
Okay.
It's not a problem. I
Okay, so let's look
Maybe
at
where I
your,
put it in there.
last name, image. Let's go see your crystal pictures. Those are the same ones that I have. I don't know why it's 8 feet tall. Oh, man.
I have header scores wrapper. You see a header, scores, yeah, like one under data, scores and data.
Who else is having?
No, there's no amazing.
Okay.
Just put
All right.
scores.
Well,
And here.
Savannah's also got a display weird, and we're not sure
Where it
why.
says it goes where it's has to go up and down.
This is-
Yeah. Yeah, and
Um,
like kind of like the
Adjusting your screen size, I think that was our problem, was that it's not the design.
Nope, I built this in one afternoon on my couch with my child climbing on me. Did not build in responsivity. It's got bootstrap, so I would think that it would have that, but
I think it might be.
I know. You know what? Yeah.
Man,
So, I'm not gonna, I just want to sure that I didn't break and I didn't touch something that was
I'm sure you're fine. I'm sure it's the I built this in an afternoon
No.
nature of it.
It's supposed to have a closing wrapper.
Yep, should have a closing wrapper.
now what do you do?
Savannah, what are you doing to it?
It wasn't broken.
I'm sorry, that didn't help. Sorry, I'm out.
I'm sure you can at least click on the image element, but that's important.
Yes. And speaking of that very point, Abby, thank you for the good segue. Let's talk about the click event.
Yeah. Yay.
So
And let's talk about
there,
the chart.
yes, that's the other thing. Okay. So something that I think you talked about with Marius on the very first day of React when we were talking about ES6 syntax and how to write methods into classes and how to call them. Now you get to utilize that information. So one thing that I didn't touch on, but I would like to while we're here. So this app here is a class-based
component, right? So it's a SMART component, it's class-based. Down here, you see how your return is wrapped in a render? That is something you have to do if you have a SMART component, a component that is extending, a class that's extending the component. You need to wrap your return in a render. If we look at our other components here, they dumb. They selfish and they dumb, and they just need the return. So that's a difference between. Another thing that I want to point out here, this paradigm has shifted some because React has added hooks in and other ways of state management. But the way things used to be is you would want a smart parent and dumb like children, right? So this piece here, this app that's holding everything, it's also got like all the brains, all of the handling. We're gonna write all of our like updating values and like our click handler in here. And then we can have dumb children. So we can have a dumb scores and a dumb data where it's just taking those props in. It's just thinking about itself and what you've given it. It's not doing any thinking. This also helps us not to have to try and pass a property from a child to a parent, which is a huge pain in the butt that we're not even going to cover, and you do not want to go down that road. So these are the other things that we will cover more in depth tomorrow, but that's okay. A lot of it is just hearing it multiple times. So while this paradigm is shifting, mostly remember that in this case, and when you're not using hooks and other state management, you want the larger like parent to be the smart thing and the children to be the dumb things. Paradigm is shifting. Don't worry about it too much. We'll get into it more in the next couple days. Okay? So on that note, Claudia, you brought up we need to update our values and set our target. And then also, as I said, we need to deal with our click event that we were holding off just to make sure that we could put a thing on the page. Savannah, yes.
I don't think I have, do I need a link to the app.css in my index HTML at all? Or no?
No, just in your app.js.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. Okay, so do we ever update the target or the values independently of each other? When?
Because you're not going to update the values every time you click. Oh no, the target and the values all change at the beginning of the game. And no.
Yeah, until we refresh.
Sorry.
Perfect.
I had to think that through.
So we can think, probably want a function that's going to set our target and set our values at the same time. And then we need to deal with a click event and what's going to happen in that click event.
You map together how much you have so far with the value.
And so we're just going to add to that score, and then we're also going to check, did you win? Did you lose?
Yeah.
No? Keep playing? Okay. So we know all this information because we already built Crystal Collector. So we know how it's supposed to work. Okay. So let's write a function to update the values and the target. So in between our state and our render is where we're going to do all of this. So we're going to do a function called update. Let's just call it update. Is update going to take anything in? Does update care about anything? Does the target care about anything that already exists?
Target doesn't care.
And the values don't care about anything that already exists. So I'm going to say it doesn't need to take in anything, right? So let's do the target first because the target is an easier one. And let's do a let new target. What's that going to be equal to? Math.floor. Okay. Math.random, and then we're going to multiply this by 120 minus, I don't think I wrote this right. So let's go back in time and let's look at what it is.
That says that you don't want it to go any higher than 100, right?
It's 120 minus 1 plus 19. Is that right? You know what? I can just look and see what it was.
Yeah, hey, you have that technology.
I do. Solutions.
I have it too somewhere.
Okay, so it's max minus min plus 1 plus min. Okay, so our max is 120. Our min is, is it 20? Is it 20?
I feel wrong, but mine was math.4 math.random times 102 times 18. So it's just, so never mind.
I mean, that might work. Yeah. And then, okay, wait. I've already forgotten because I got sidetracked by. Okay, so the plus goes after the 19 or after the 20. So 20 plus 1. And then here plus 20. Yes. And then let's make sure that yep, we're good. Okay. So, okay, I'm going to close this because I keep opening it. Okay, so here. Our new target is this. I'm going to send this out in Slack. And I'm going to put this for our, so our max score is it just 12 minus 1 plus 1 plus 1? I would just do 12. Personally, I would do just 12 plus 1 here because this is redundant.
By the way, 102 plus it's the same thing. Equals the same thing.
I thoroughly believe you. Okay, so we have our new target. And Paul, I'm going to put you on the spot again.
Oh,
How do we update state?
this stuff set state. And then curly brackets. And,
So first parens, then curlies.
right.
You're good.
And then the key. And then the
Yep, so it'll be target
colon,
and then new target. Okay. So, ladies, you never want to change state without using this dot set state because your view updates based on what state is.
but you can't do it.
You can do it, but then you get out of
You
sync.
get a mutation then.
Yeah, you get a bad mutation. Bad things happen when you do that. We'll talk about it more in one hot second. Okay? What the bad thing is. But no, get it in your brain. Let it sink into your soul. The only way you ever change state is with this dot set state. Just let that bathe over you.
repeat it to yourself many times.
But it is JavaScript, so you can
Yeah.
do whatever you want.
More on how not using this, that's so too. After the break.
Yes. Okay. So let's talk about our values. And we're just going to chat for a little bit right here. And then we'll write some code, right? We're going to do some thinking without doing some typing. Okay? So right now we have values set at 0. How do you think we should update values? How do you think we should change values? How do you think we should update it? So if we do it just like target, right? So if I do let new value equal, well, I like where you're going with the map. 12 plus 1. So if I just did this and down here I said values, or yeah, values colon new value. Okay, so let's see what happens when we do this, right? So, yeah, they're all going to be the same. So if we look at our React Dev tools over here, you can see that values is null. Okay, so another thing that we need to learn real quick and talk about is the lifecycle methods, right? So before, we just had all these things happen. Back in Crystal Collector days in week 4, we had all of this assign on page load, right? Well, we don't exactly have that ability here in React. What we do have access to is when a component mounts. So when this component gets on the page, and wouldn't you know, there's a nice little feature built into React called the lifecycle methods, and there's one that we want here called component did mount. Okay, it's a function that doesn't take anything in, and this is similar to our on-page load that we had back in week 4. This time we're just saying, hey, when this component goes on the page, run this code. And so for us, it's just going to be update, except that update is part of this object. So what do I need to put in front of it? This dot update. Yeah. Look at you crushing it. So if I come over here and this reloads and we check our app, you can see we have one value of 6, but how many crystals do we have? 4. So if we need 4 values, Lori talked about a map earlier. What do you think we would want to put our values in as? What do we map over? An array. So we're probably going to want to make this an array. Okay. Y'all are crushing it. I'm proud of you. Okay. So I'm going to make this values here an array of 4. And then we're going to change our array here. We're going to hang on to this for a minute, but we're going to take it down there while we work on some other stuff. So if I want to map over this, what do I write? This dot state, because that's where it is, right? And then what's the value we want out of state? What's the key we want out of state? Values. And then what are we doing to it? Lori? Map. Okay. I'm just going to call these X for now. You can call it num, whatever you want. And then I'm going to say X is equal to this guy right here that we saved for later. Mhm. And now, if this page reloads, values is an array. Oh my God, ladies, we've got things. Yep. Let's see. Why are we angry? If you're having issues, why it down? Okay, let's go back to your, let's save this. Let's go back to math that element is not function. So let's see. Go back in time. Let's just and then, yep. Then make it plus one. No, instead of plus 20. Plus 1. Why are you saying? Not form, not random. No, not random. Oh. Oh, there we go again. Okay. So much anger. You're welcome. Math doesn't know. Okay, let's go with what you're mapping over. Yep. So check your DevTools. Is this right? I just want to make sure. Your React DevTools, and you should see if you target app values as an array, and you should have 4 different values in there. So,
Yeah.
Thank you. And then you click on apps. Values. Open that guy up. Just
I don't know. I'm not getting any.
okay. We should
I just stop it
deal with that and see what's happening here.
You never know.
Oh, look at my line 27. You just need to add the values to your set state.
No.
Sorry, I know it's a lot. So right after you were here.
Sorry. Did you think it was to be fixed?
No, I just, I maximized the screen.
No, I
I did it to 150% and then it worked.
Okay, so now give it another go and see if you get not zeros.
It's either that or minimize it. It's gotta do one or the other.
I don't know.
Nope, none of it works.
Nope. I don't know. It's fine. I really, I got nothing.
I don't know if it'll work.
It's
not worth it.
I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah. Check
No.
your React tools and see if you've got values, and that's
Okay.
Do you have it
Oh, no,
That's your JSON viewer.
I'm sorry, where is it? This one. Did I see it?
Why is it not here? Do not
And
open.
then it's going on to burn and then take
Close
it.
your Oh, yeah, actually, it's now. Oh, no, not that. Straight back.
There you go, components, and if you click on app. All right, are we good? Do we have 4 values that are not 0?
Yes, ma'am.
Beautiful. We are so close. Yay, okay. So, we know that we need to give this a value, this being our crystal picks, right? We know this because we remember what Crystal Collector was like way back in week 4. And we remember that when we made our crystal pictures here, we gave it this value line. So let's go to our JS and let's give it, oh my goodness, excuse me. Let's give it a value. Okay. And what is our value going to be? This dot state dot values. And then values is an array. So if we look back at our crystals JSON, and maybe like what do we have in here that happens to be delightfully 0 indexed for us? The ID, right? So over here, we're going to say, in our app.js, we're going to say crystals or crystal.id. Okay. So now, if we refresh this, we're going to use our React tool some more. If we look at this crystal picture, you can see, oh my goodness, we got a value of 12, a value of 10, 8, 3. They have values now. So inside of your wrapper, you've got these crystal picks.
Oh,
Yeah.
Click on it. Actually click on it. You got a value there.
All right, how are we doing? Okay. So, great. Now we have values. Now the last thing, we got to deal with this click event. So let's write the function just real quick. Let's write a basic function that's like handle click. And I'm going to say, let's give it the ID and a value. Just in case we need that ID. And inside of here, let's console log in handle click. And we want to see what the ID is and what the value is. Okay. So we're about to walk into a brick wall with this. We know we're about to get some red angriness. It's okay. We're going to talk through it. Okay. So down here, let's give this a score. And score is going to be equal to this dot handle click. Okay. Now we're going to go over to our crystal picks. And we're going to write an on click. So this is a built-in, so it's on click. We're in crystal pictures right now. So we added over in our React or in our app.js a score that is this dot handle click. Over here, we're saying Okay, props dot, okay, score,
I wish it's there.
which is this guy right here, this score
Oh.
here. So score is a function and it takes in two values. So it's going to take in props.id and props.value. So if I save this, you can see over here, oh, I've got all of this right away. And I didn't click on anything. So think back in time. What do those parens on the end of a function mean? Call it right now. We don't want to call it right now. So the way that we get around this is that we're going to put this in an anonymous function. The way we do that, set of parens, fat arrow. Now when we save this, we should see nothing. Beautiful. Okay. But if I click on one of these, we should see handle click ID 3, value 3, 2, 6, 1 and 8, 0 and 3. Do we get this? So the two numbers, if we look back at our app.js, just put in a console log of this ID and the value. In app.js, probably under your update. Try and find the box. Let's see if we can get your click event to click, Savannah.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at your console. Oh, you're getting something. Yeah, you're good. Okay. All right, are we all getting something in our console log?
Oh, we didn't write anything to update it.
Yep. Are we good up to this point? Okay. Maybe. Is something broken? I swear I heard a maybe in here, and I think it came from Claudia. Okay. All right, so as Savannah pointed out, we just wrote this function. It's clicking when we want it to click. It's not doing anything. So let's make it do a thing. We're almost done. This is the very last piece, ladies and gentlemen. Well, no, because the on click is already, yeah. Yeah, that crystal pick element or component has the on click. So let's make our handle click do something. So what does it need to do? Thinking back, way back in time to week 4, what does this need to do? Add to your score. Okay. Yeah, so we're going to need to check if you win or lose. Then we need to, if so, update. And that's it. Yeah. Otherwise, keep going. Okay, so first thing we need to do is add to your score. And so we want to, let's first grab, what do you want to do? Do you want to set state first? So we're updating your score first? How are we going to do that? Yes, you let it soak into your soul. Okay. So this, so we're gonna set the state of score equal to this dot state dot score plus value. Okay. So let's make sure that this piece works. Okay. Okay, so let's see when this refreshes. Hey, this is great, but we're never going to get a win or a loss because, well, we haven't written anything yet. Okay, so add your score. Done. Okay. Then, so check if you win or lose. So that sounds like an, so we don't have to use a ternary here because we're not in the return or the render. So we can just use an if here. And because we have to do a bunch of stuff, yeah, this would be a good one. So what do we want to check? Dot what? Target, yeah. Okay. So if this dot state dot score is equal to this dot state dot target, you win. Okay. So let new wins equal this dot state dot wins plus 1. And actually, we're going to do this here as well because, so this will work probably, but to prevent us from walking into a brick wall here, this dot state set state is actually asynchronous. So the first thing we're going to do, instead of checking this dot state dot score, we're going to make a, we're going to let new score equal this dot state dot score plus value. And we're going to move this guy down after the if. The set state. And then we're going to say, hey, if new score is equal to this dot state dot target. Here, we're not going to worry about this set state for a hot second. Just focus on what we've got here. So this dot set state is asynchronous. We don't want to accidentally walk into a brick wall here. No, we haven't. Yep, that's why it's angry. Whoa, hello, Lindsay. Okay.
When it comes to the phosphate, that one plus one, if it's not like a space in between those, what are we doing?
Well, do you mean like here and here?
Yeah.
Yes. Don't put them here or here. But we haven't yet. Okay. You're good. You're good. Okay. So if we win, we want to do what? Yep. So we don't have an alert built into this. If you want to go that extra mile, you do you.
Not who I am.
Come up with a new random score. What do we already have built that does that? We have update. We also need to, as I heard, update wins and update our score, right? Because now we're back to 0 because we won. So we're going to do a this dot set state. Whoosh, whoosh. And let's look at what our state is. So we want to set score equal to 0. We want to let wins equal new wins. And then we just want to call this dot update. And that'll take care of our new values and our new target. So else if, right? What's our loss condition here? Then you won, but how do you lose? Yep, so if new score is greater than this dot state dot target, we need to do everything we just did, but for losses. So let new loss equal this dot state dot losses plus 1. This dot set state. We're going to set score to 0 again. We're going to set losses to new loss, new lose. And then we're going to call this dot update again. Cool. And if it's not either one of those, what do we want to do? What's our else condition? Continue on, and we need to do what? I like add. Add what? Or update what in state? Your score, yeah. So we're going to do another set state here. And we're going to say this nope, just kidding. We're going to say score is equal to new score. Let's see if this works. Well, so what is update doing?
Oh, that's it'll.
Let's see if I'm getting an unexpected token. Okay. Let's make sure this works, and then let's jump around and help anybody who needs help. Yeah? This one first? Yeah? Okay. I'm going to make sure this works and I didn't break it. And if I did, we'll fix it. Come on, give me a big number. Thank you. All right, great. So you see our losses went up. Our score is increasing.
We're losing. I'm gonna assume that wins is also gonna work then in that case. 6, 2, 20. You got it to win? Good. Okay. So somebody can win at this game, just not me. So let's look at the code again. Okay. Who's having issues? Liv. Is that a me or is that a? Hold on. Okay. Oh,
These are, yeah.
your score isn't updated. Okay, so look at my score. Let's look at your state. This here. Scroll up in the file. Score. Score. Let's scroll down. Sorry.
Did I spell something wrong?
Yeah.
I don't think so. But I don't see why you're not. Did it update it at all?
This is updated.
Try and do it one more time. Slowly. I don't see your thing not going back to zero.
What is it? Not working. No.
Not
Still working.
Scroll down to the bottom where your it's not state that score, create a Y score, and go back. There's go to your scores component. Make sure that you've got crops.y. Why is this doing this?
Yeah. So
What you do? I don't know either.
It's updating the wins and losses, but it's not updating the target score.
Is it not doing the target either?
That's a good question, right? Yes.
Yes, the target is working, just not the your square piece. I don't know. We're gonna ask Abby and
No, your target changing everything you click.
well, yeah, because now she's both.
Because I'm, yeah. These are what?
Half of her set state is working.
Oh, okay. Let's take a look.
Okay.
It's not something I've experienced before.
So, this is my state. Targets.
Where's my first target for?
And I won.
So her wins are updating, her losses. But the score isn't.
Oh, my losses aren't updating.
Can you show Abby what it's doing again
Yeah.
too?
Um,
I'm gonna see if I can help Claude Pod. Claude Pod? I heard you. Okay, hold on. Are you three doing well?
I'm good.
Paul, you good?
So
Lori?
You know, one thing, Jeff was on, when you do a set state,
Yes.
that's an asynchronous operation.
Yeah.
And it does not happen immediately.
Correct.
Although if you use that set state in React, you know, so you've got a component that's displaying that reactive state change.
Mhm.
That works great. But if you're like doing a console log right after you do a set state, you're not going to see what you just.
Right. It is asynchronous, and you can write a callback on that so that it.
Is that right?
Yeah. So that set
So
state
like a
has to
promise.
happen beforehand.
I would look up how to do that, how to put a callback on your set state. I think it's just like a comma and then your constant.
I just did a set timeout.
You could also do that.
Well, I mean, I couldn't figure out what the heck was going on.
Yeah, so you can put a callback on that
Okay,
set state.
I'll look
So,
at doing that.
all right, so that's all I have for you all. Yay. I'm gonna help Claudia with her issue and Abby's helping Liv with hers, but any questions? How are we feeling about this? Especially my ladies who have not done this yet.
It's just hard to remember, like, the jumping around from file to file, like which things live where, but in the heat of it, I get confused about which functions need to be where, and which things.
I don't
sit.
know.
So in the components, pretty much, it's just set up, but the
High five, Claudia.
maybe all the functions, everything that we're actually on.
That's how I write it.
Yeah.
It's not always like
There are other styles,
Yeah.
But is
but they all follow the same principle. It may not always be your app.js.
No, that's- yeah.
Some of the class activities will have like game, and you do all of this inside of game, and then your app just holds game. And it's the same idea. You're gonna have a smart component. It's got your state. You're probably gonna have some dumb children, so you're just passing props to, and then you can move those components around how you want. So
I'll get it, it's just not solid.
it's a lot, and we didn't realize until last night that you guys hadn't covered state. We're covering state until tomorrow. So I'm really proud of you.
Yeah.
You guys hang in there real well. Let
Yeah,
this
you
dot
post
set state wash over you. So this is the thing, right? So this is why we never want to mutate state without. So when state updates, that's when your view updates. So if we look at this values, I could just push into this array. But state doesn't know that that's changed. So you're not going to get that re-render how you want it to be. That's why it's important. Kind of.
It's not like a, I mean, but it's.
But it is changing the view based on what's in there. And that's the important.
And you know, then you have to tell it to them.
That is the beauty of React, is that it does that. So. And you don't have to. Yeah,
No, that would be great for projects too.
I know. I saw so many of the bulleted girls. There's so many, and then reload. I'm like, oh, just wait, something better is coming. Like, yeah, so the bulleted girls. So
Rachel.
yes,
I don't know what they did, I just hold the login.
so. All right, Bud Pod, I'm gonna come and help you. Any other questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'll
Thank you,
see
Lindsay, so much.
this front row tomorrow. Paul, thanks for hanging in there.
Oh, no, thank you. This is, I tell you, the more you do this.
This is also, oh, one last thing. So we just took an old assignment and we put it in React. Did we look at the old assignments code? No. We relied on that for the random. We relied on what we knew already about how it was supposed to work, breaking it up into those pieces and those components. And that's how we do this. People who, because I know some of you want to convert your project 2 for project 3. You can do that. The people who are successful at doing that don't try and jam their old code into React. They take this kind of approach where you step back and you're like, okay, I know what it needs to do, and go about it that way. That is how you are successful. When you try and jam in code, you inevitably run into 9,000 issues and you make a lot more work for yourself.
Would you just see it?
So
So what is the, what is the one here with React?
So Liv's going to kill us, but Auth0 is actually apparently really good for React.
I just was reading about that.
Zero
So
That's what she did on Tuesday.
yeah. So apparently Auth0 is much better to deal with on front end side of things, whereas Liv's group is using it on the back end, and that's where there are issues. So there's somebody from Sarah's full time that just graduated who had success, got it deployed to Heroku when they were using Auth0 on the front. You can also use Passport on the front, or with React. Haven't done it, but another TA built out a repo where he's doing it, or he did it. So it's definitely doable. You can also use JSON Web Tokens, do authorization that way. There are options. So,
I'll show you, I got them closer, but
hey, they're closer. I don't know why irritated you. So,
Thank you very much. Cynthia.
you're very welcome. All right. I'm going to turn off the recording for you people at home. Claudia, I'm coming to help you.
My gosh.
I'm going to get there one day. Claude Pod, I'm going to get there.